Greetings and welcome to another video, and we are back, the three of us. I'm joined by Mamemeister.
Evening.
And Lukozer.
Good evening, fuckers.
Now that's what we expect to see from
Yes,
you.
that's my proper intro.
Right, so normally we pick a complete glut of different SIDs from different artists, but this time we're doing something a bit different. And this wasn't my idea. I'm not going to steal anyone's thunder. This was Lukozer's idea. And what we're doing this time is we've each picked an artist, and we're going to play not 5 but 6 songs from each artist. And I feel, and I think the others would agree with me, they're very different. So it's going to be quite a different mix of music. So I've picked Ben Daglish. Now, anyone that's watched any of the SID shows that are on Mamemeister's channel or watched anything that I've ever done with music will know that Ben Daglish, not only do I think he's a great composer because he's so off the wall, he's also one of my other favourite human beings because he was a damn good bloke. So I've picked him. I'll hand over to Mamemeister. You have picked, and why?
I've gone for Mr. Robert J. Hubbard. Probably no surprise there. He's probably my favourite SID musician. I mean, my kind of sort of grounding in SID music is very early days. I mean, I moved away from the C64 kind of 87, so I never really got to know the later guys. But yeah, he's done some Stonewall classics, and including my favourite ever SID tune.
And Lukozer, you've picked.
Well, yeah, I went with Johannes Bjerregaard. Unfortunately, yeah, the reason is all too obvious. But as well as that, if you go through all the previous SID videos we've done on either of your channels, we've only ever had one piece from him. So, yeah, some more of his was absolutely needed. And especially now, so...
Can I ask you, Mr. L, did you have one picked before he passed away, or was...
It was after I heard the news about it that I came up with the idea. So I had him very much in mind when I came up with the idea of it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said, didn't you, when I did a little tribute SID video for him, well, at the time of recording a few weeks ago, you actually commented that you was genuinely crushed. And I know when we played Elite that night, and I sent you a message. I said, in other bad news, and your first word was "fuck." So I mean, yeah, you were genuinely upset by it, and you know, for good reason. You know, he's another one that's you know, I never met him. Someone asked if I'd ever met him. I never met him. I never really spoke to him, but I've always heard good things about the man. So you know, it's good to pay tribute in some small part. So yeah, damn fine choice. Well, I haven't really, I suppose, apart from what I would consider my number one, I haven't really gone in any particular order for this. Not alphabetical, not otherwise. I've just gone for it. Now my ones, I've realised, range from 86 to 88, so I'm only covering a really small section of Ben Daglish. I mean, he stopped on the 64 in, when was it? It was 1991, and he started in about 83, 84 when he was doing a lot of stuff with Tony Crowther. So yeah, I've really gone for a small section, but mine are pretty much all from games, but it's all stuff that well, barring one actually, and I'll explain that one when it comes up. It's all from games that I had and played and used to load for the music at the time, like I did for a lot of games. So yeah, I've gone for no specific order at all. I don't know if either of you have.
No.
No, the only... There's one song that I've chosen which, for reasons that will become apparent when we play it, kind of picked itself. The rest, no, I've just picked them because I think they were good. I mean, Johannes Bjerregaard was doing music from 86 to 90, so obviously not nowhere near as long as Ben Daglish was. And I think mine, well, actually, it does cover quite most years actually that he was doing 64 music. So yeah, I think I've got a reasonable sort of amount of a reasonable showing for what he was capable of.
Oh, nice. Right, well, there's no time like the present. I'm quite happy to start now if you two are.
Far away.
Let's go.
Right, well, I'm going to go first. So, let's do the old thing. Right, well, the first one I've gone for is from 1987, and it's the title tune to a nifty little puzzle game called Deflector. Now, the thing I like about that one is even though it's only, it's like 2 minutes, 51 seconds, less than 3 minutes, you can hear Ben's prog coming out. I mean, the guy could play so many different musical instruments, and he was in some folk prog bands and some prog rock bands and stuff like that. And the amount of time changes in that one little song. And also, the C64 does cowbell. What's not to like about it?
Yeah, I think it suits the game really well. The trouble is, it's because I think the game was completely forgettable. I've heard him do better. It didn't really grab me, that one. I've heard him do worse. I certainly can't say it's the worst thing I've heard him do, but yeah, not a memorable one for me, that.
Yeah, I've kind of got to agree with Mr. Lukozer. It didn't really get going. I mean, I don't know what the sort of the kind of bass instrument he was using. I mean, what was there was quality, but it was very, very simplistic. And I have to agree, I have heard better. But to take nothing away from Ben Daglish, it didn't do an awful lot for me, if I'm being honest as well.
I've always liked that one, so well, obviously that's why it's on my list of songs. But yeah, I just
Yeah.
go on, Chris.
I'll say there was something there that I could hear that means I certainly go along with what you were saying about his progressive content. I can't remember exactly where it was, but there was a chord percussion going, and I heard it the first time, and I thought, okay, right, next it's going to do blah, blah, blah. It didn't. It went totally, like, in a direction I was not expecting, and then okay, all right, yeah, that's certainly different. Yeah, that certainly showed his progressive side. So I had something that was interesting in there, but yeah.
That's the first time I don't have even seen the game. I've heard of it. Who released the game, by the way, out of curiosity?
Gremlin.
Yeah, it was a you had little rotating mirrors, and you had to beam a laser around, and yeah, it was like a puzzle game.
Yeah, it's Lukozer said, it probably did fit the style of game. It probably did fit it. That's the first time I've heard it. You know what it's like, you hear something for the first time, you go, and then you listen to it a few more times and it kind of grows on you, but it probably did suit the style of the game, but it wasn't one of my favourite Ben Daglish tracks.
No, that's fair enough.
Still quality, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd like to think that each of us is playing songs that we like rather than what we think everyone else is going to like. So yeah, that's the way it works. But yeah, I like that because like Chris said, you think it's going to do something and it fucks off down the pub. I thought it was there's something I like about that's what I like about a lot of Ben's music. He doesn't follow, unless he's doing a cover of something, he doesn't follow a specific path. He'll start with something, then he'll bugger off, say bollocks to that, I'm doing this now. Literally, when he's on stage, he's a sort of bloke that'll pick up a guitar, put it down, pick up a trumpet, put it down, pick up a violin, and it'll all be in the same song. And I think that song kind of shows his versatility. But yeah, you haven't got to like it, but yeah, I do.
He's not frightened to take chances and do something completely sort of left field.
No, not at all. He never was.
No, if there was a phrase that sums up Ben Daglish, then left field is it,
Yeah, well, on his I don't know if I'd call it obituary. When they did the 8-Bit Symphony, they asked a few of us for sort of like memorable things that we thought of from Ben Daglish, and a lot of people put in like, he was this, he did this, he was great at this, and my quote was he simply was the 8-bit Lemmy. And they didn't print the rest of that because the rest of that was because he did not give a fuck. There you go. Right. Alan, Mr. Mamemeister.
Right, okay. Yeah, I've gone for Rob Hubbard. There we go. I've just gone for, you can see there, I mean, very similar graph to Ben Daglish's. I mean, he started in 1984, according to this, and then he finished in 1989, and then he had a 37-year hiatus before he did. Was that what was it when he did in 2017?
Rob's life, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, Rob's
life.
Of
course it was.
The one you played last time. He done either. I can't remember if it was 15, 16 or 17 off the top of my head, but he done a load of new ones with the help of Jason Page for Project Hubbard, and a few have been used in games and that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he did have a bit of time off.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys. I've not picked my. If I was to pick my 5 favourite Rob Hubbard tracks, there's probably only one of them that features in this list. I've tried to. I don't want to be, keep it too samey, so I've gone for just other cracking tracks. As you say, I don't think there's a bad one in this. I've gone for the first one. It's a shite game, but it's a nice punchy track, and it's a title screen for Jerry the Jerem. Let's take it away. remember when you listen to Rob Hubbard is, I mean, that one came out in 1986. About a year before, it was real shitty. I mean, the quality SID tunes was just bloody awful. And I mean, he was the first guy that got the SID chip and just fucking strangled it. And, you know, I don't think anyone realised until not Monty on the Run, what was that first game? Thing in a Spring. Until Thing in a Spring came along, nobody realised that the SID chip was capable of this. And he just showed people what was capable. And I think, you know, he's the original founder of the SID music. I just think he's bloody awesome.
I refuse to believe that I was the only one of us sitting here while listening to that and thinking of crazy comments, because there was a lot of stuff in there that sounded very similar.
Yeah, well, I mean, Rob would have had his own like music player, wouldn't he? I would imagine.
Yeah,
it had a lot of Thing of a Spring in it as well. So
yeah.
Well, this does have something in common with Thing on a Spring as well, of course, which is that both games were fucking horseshit.
I suppose what you have to remember is, I mean, Rob Hubbard made a lot of SID tunes in a very small space of time, and given that the competition was next to fuck all, he could just use his instruments and just mix and match it. You know, I think it was later on that he started to kind of experiment a wee bit. But as Lukozer said, a lot of the very similar to some of his other stuff that he's done. But I don't think that's a particularly bad thing.
Well, no, I mean, you know, a lot of the bands I listen to, you know, make no mistake. I mean, I'm wearing a fucking t-shirt. I mean, Iron Maiden, every single one of their albums sounds different, but yet it sounds the same, and it sounds like Maiden, the same as we were saying about AC/DC in the last video. You know, there's a certain sound, and Rob uses his instruments, which is why Rob Hubbard sounds like Rob Hubbard. You know, all right, we listened to Ben Daglish earlier. I mean, he goes all over the place, but Rob's got a very set way, and you can tell it's a Rob Hubbard track. Or if it's not, you think that's someone that's copying Rob Hubbard.
And you'll get some twat that listens to the latest Maiden album and goes, "It's all right, but it's far too Iron Maiden."
Yeah.
Like, what? The fuck do you expect?
I don't agree with at this time. There was fuck all competition, because of course he had Martin Galway, he had David Whittaker, and he had Ben Daglish. The difference is that the audio drivers that Rob Hubbard had were by far the best of the lot. I mean, all of those musicians in interviews, they all said that if they wished that they had access to Rob Hubbard's drivers. And the thing that really made his stand out is that his percussion set was way ahead of everybody else's. So he would use it a lot, whereas particularly Martin Galway, he had very little percussion in his, certainly in his early stuff, because he freely admitted he couldn't do it. You know, his percussion sounded awful. But somehow Rob got it right, so right from the get-go, you always had like a decent drum track, and that is what made his stuff really stand out, especially in the early days. So he did have competition, but thanks to you know, the fact that he had the better drivers, he was way ahead of them.
I think he probably helped it. I'm quite sure that these guys aspired to be as good as him, and to be fair, they did catch up, and you know, in some cases surpassed him.
It took a while, but eventually, yeah, it did happen.
See, when you talk about drivers, what do you mean with that then, Lukozer? I'm just curious as to what that is.
It is players, you know, the audio players that they each use. They all had their own drivers. Occasionally, people would be able to use drivers for, you know, that other musicians had. Like in the case of Maniacs of Noise, Charles Deanan created the drivers that all of them used for a while. Martin Galway's, when he was with Ocean, he would use like Ocean's own drivers, which were developed by Jonathan Dunn. So they both used exactly the same drivers, but yeah, it didn't happen very often that you know, musicians had access to you know, other musicians' drivers. But
so was that like Was that like the interface that they used to kind of build the tunes in?
No, it's basically like the instrument set. You know,
Aye.
the actual set of sounds that they'd put together.
Yeah, that's why when Ben Daglish was offered to do a collab with Rob Hubbard on Auf Wiedersehen Monty, he jumped at the chance they could get a look and play at the music drivers.
Yeah.
So, and he said that as well. You know, he actually said that one of the main reasons he was quite happy to do that is because he wanted to play with Rob's sound set. So, because you can clearly hear the pair of them in that song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to hear that song, it's in the first SID show that I did with Lukozer. If I can be asked or if I can remember, I will put a link up the top.
Yeah, you will. It's you saying it. It's not me. So you know. Yeah, it will be done.
I might leave it out now, and that would be nothing short of anarchy. Right, Lukozer, what have you got for us then in your bag of JB tricks?
Right. So my first Johannes Bjerregaard songs from 1988. I'm pretty sure he had joined Maniacs of Noise when this one came along. I don't know, and I'm going to be saying this about all 6 that I've chosen here. I don't know if this was in a game or not. I'm fairly sure it was. So this is Subtune 2, I think, from Rockbuster. There we go.
Yeah, not too bad at all. Now, there's me saying about how different all the musicians are, and that had a lot of Hubbard sound to it to me, especially some of the sort of like trying to think of a way to put it. There's a lot of swooshing sounds on that really reminded me of Hubbard's work, and that is by no means an insult to anybody, because saying someone's done something that could be possibly mistaken for Rob Hubbard's work is not an insult by any stretch of the imagination. That was great.
Mm-hmm. Can't say I noticed any Hubbard-esque sounds coming out, but just the quality of everything from start to finish, it was a kind of complete track. That was really good. Never heard that before. That was excellent.
Well, quite pleased that something I picked up. I pick up with a lot of Bjerregaard's music, and you just mentioned it there. So I've said it in plenty of videos in the past that when SID music really took off, you had Rob Hubbard and Martin Galway were the two big names. And then around 87, you got like the next generation. So you got like your own Tells and Matt Gray and all this lot coming along. Chris Hillsbeck, who took it up the next level. But somewhere in between there needed to be a sort of bridge that took you from the first generation to the second. And I think that is where Johannes Bjerregaard comes in, because I can certainly hear in his audio drivers and in this song, you can really hear, the actual sounds are very Hubbard-esque. But his actual music composition is very much in the vein of like the next gen, your own Tells and that. So he is like, the bridge between the two generations. And I think this piece, and in fact just about everyone that I've chosen, I think really does illustrate that. So I think he is much more important a SID musician than a lot of people would normally give him credit for.
Oh, absolutely. All right, he didn't do music on that many famous games. I mean, the ones people will remember will be Stormlord, and probably Flimbo's Quest that he done work with Ren Alhan.
Yeah.
So he's done a load of compositions, but not a lot of it would be from games that people would remember. I mean, it's like that one I featured a couple of weeks back, Special Agent. Well, it is the one I put up as a tribute to him. That was like a budget sort of Firebird type game.
Well, it was re-released or given a much wider re-release when it came out on Firebird. Originally it was released in 86, but I think it was only released in Denmark or something, so nobody had ever heard of it. So it wasn't until Firebird came along and re-released it a couple of years later that it actually got any kind of like recognition,
But it wasn't until I saw you did a music video for it and a game review. And it weren't until I saw them that I'd even heard of the game. And I had my 64 from I can never remember if it was mid 85 or early 86 I got my 64. But I had my 64 until about 92. And I used, even when I had my ST and then my Amiga, I still had the 64 hanging around to load up to listen to SID music before they started developing SID players and that. So I did hear a lot of stuff from the early 90s as it was coming out. I'd never even heard of Special Agent before, and as such, at that point, I'd never even heard of Johannes. But I know his stuff a bit better now.
Yeah, I mean the game was pretty forgettable. I've played far worse, but there was. His soundtrack was, by a distance, the only good thing about it, really.
That's often the case with a lot of games, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very true.
See, when you think about it, the only outlet, really, for SID musicians back in the day was when their tunes featured on a game. And, guys like Johan, he did very, very few games. So what other outlets did their music? Why did these guys do what they did? I mean, presumably it must have been these kind of like parties, drug parties that they had. They'd have these big collections and they'd all come together and make tunes. Until the internet came along, people like the stuff that he was putting out from sort of, you know, whenever up till 1996 when the internet became a thing, there was really no kind of means of sharing SID tunes. So there was this massive underground of amazing music that people just never really heard of. They weren't aware of it unless they were at these.
You did have the BBS, the bulletin board systems and stuff like CompuNet, but I often get the feeling that was a lot bigger in the States than it was over here. But I mean, I used to use BBSs with my Amiga because I didn't really know any better when I had a 64. But yeah, you could whack a 2.8 baud modem in you, or not even that, you know, a really slow modem into the user port on the 64. And you could go online and you could direct dial. You know, it cost you a bomb if you was phoning the boards in America. And that's how a lot of the pirate games on disc got about, by people sharing them and downloading them. You know,
well, that was how I got to know. Before Rob Hubbard came along, you had the Mighty Bog, and I remember downloading, if that was the right phrase, downloading the Mighty Bog album off whatever the fuck it was called. And I'm like, wow, this thing can actually play real tunes other than Greensleeves.
There were also, of course, you know, public domain demos and public domain music discs that had all this stuff on there, and of course, cracked game intros. And Triton Technology was the group that Johannes was with before he joined Maniacs of Noise. Yeah, they started off as a cracking group, and he would write the music for like some of their intros then.
Yeah, I mean, you did have a lot of disc-based magazines. I mean, if you look at Thomas DeTurt's list, there is a load of stuff he done for. I mean, I don't know if it was in German or English because I've never actually seen the magazine, but it was a disc-based magazine, and you know, he used to compose music for us. I think it was like a monthly sort of thing. So you know, that's 12. Well, depending if he only done one bit, it was 12. You know, pieces of Thomas DeTurt music you could get a year just by subscribing, or however you managed to get them discs, whether they were downloaded or posted out. I don't know because I weren't into that at the time. But yeah, there was a few ways for him to get it out, but yeah, nowhere near like there is today. You know, everyone's phoning his brothers on the internet now, aren't they? So that would be one way I would have thought you did be able to get stuff, and of course. Yeah. Cover discs on things were the same. They'd have menu music and what have you. Sometimes it was ripped from games, sometimes it was from demos. I suppose, like you were saying now about, you know, what would give them the gumption to make the music is, you know, why would someone pick up any musical instrument? You know, if you get hold of a Commodore 64 that's got a synthesizer built into it and you manage to knock a few tunes out and you think, yeah, I'm pretty good at this, you're going to want to keep on composing and creating more of what you would consider to be your art. And it is an art form. I don't care what anyone says about like video game and computer music. It's an art form just as much as playing a fucking piano or a violin or anything else. It's an instrument.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, good choice. So we'll come back round to Ben then. So for my second tune, I've gone from one that was on a Gremlin graphics shoot 'em up. I think it was vertical. I can't remember. As far as I remember, as usual, with a lot of Gremlin graphics games at the time. Sorry, chaps, but the game was pretty pants. But I always thought the music was good, and the music on this one is Bulldog. I like all the pitch bending in that, and again, it's all the time changes. You know, you've got drum sections, not drum sections. Just something about that song I like. It's and also with that one, you can tell that instead of using his own player, he's using Anthony Crowther's, Tony Crowther.
Yeah.
But you can tell that with I've noticed with a lot of Ben's songs, it's the bass that's a giveaway. It's got that real sort of echoey bass on Tony Crowther's players, whereas Ben's seems to have like a harder sound to it, which just adds more versatility to his work. But yeah, I like that one. I never liked the game at all, but always like the music.
Yeah, that was much better than the first one there. Yeah, I always assumed that Tony Crowther's audio drivers were going to be relatively simple. But I think one of the reasons why I always think that, I mean, Ben Daglish and Tony Crowther, they were really good friends, you know, pretty much all their fucking lives, I think.
Yeah.
And them using each other's audio drivers comes as no surprise at all. I mean, bearing in mind that they did Wii Music together, so, you know, they were certainly going to do it, you know, even if it was then. But yeah, because Tony Crowther was a bit of a jack of all trades, because of course when he was writing games, he was doing everything, you know, not just the audio. I mean, he did, you know, the whole fucking thing. And he freely admitted that, you know, he wasn't like the greatest musician out there. And his drivers were somewhat basic. So when you listen to something like that, you think he's getting a lot out of those. And I'm pretty sure they both knew that, yeah, Tony Crowther's audio drivers are only so-so. Certainly not on a patch, you know, as Rob Hubbard's. So he's done this to show, okay, yeah, they may be like fairly simple, you know, audio set that I've got here, but I can still do stuff with it. And yeah, he's certainly good.
Yeah, well, we've all seen those like bands in poorer countries where you've got like three blokes, a guitar with two strings on it, a bloke with a wooden spoon, and a geezer with a bucket, and they turn out this amazing music, and it's effectively what Ben's done with that driver.
Yeah, it's a good description. Yeah, that is what he's done.
Anyway, enough about Iron Maiden. Yeah, I mean, I think it was yourself, Lukozer, a couple of the last SID show. Sometimes less is more. And we've all heard some SID tunes. I think I did one in the last SID show where the guy's trying to put out every single trick under the sun that he's, I can do this and I can do that, and it just becomes a complete fucking mess. That there was quite simple kind of sort of voices, but put together, the simplicity made it more enjoyable. It was quite a striking piece. Again, I don't think I've ever actually heard of that one before. I've certainly never played the game Bulldog.
Yeah, I remember the game. The game really wasn't much cop at all.
Can't remember it.
It was a shoot 'em up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I used the phrase very, very loosely.
So in other words, it should have been called Bullshit rather than Bulldog.
Yeah, or at least a shit 'em up or something. But yeah, no, it weren't the best game ever. Oh yeah, no. Well, I'm glad you like that piece because I quite like that one as well. Yeah, it is. I mean, as I remember, the game itself's got a lot of that classic. Like when you first load the game up, the menu's got a load of that classic sort of grey, sort of looks like his chamfered sort of like metallic strips moving around the screen with the titles and that on. You know, you can see it from a distance. You know it's a Commodore 64 game, and you can hear it's a Commodore 64 game. And I think after playing it 3 or 4 times, I think I used to load it up, put the music on. All I ever saw were those big grey panels moving up and down the screen.
Excuse me. Yeah. I think what you said, Panther, it just shows kind of Ben Daglish's versatility. I mean, some of the pieces that he's done in other games is just incredible. He's got, I mean, it says up there, influential SID composer. He's probably the most diverse, or at least one of the most diverse kind of SID musicians out there.
Well, you can't really pin a genre on him. I mean, the genre is, you know, he can go from prog to jazz to classical. you know, when they did the 8-bit symphony, he was originally supposed to be conducting a couple of his tracks because that's what he wanted to do. So he could turn his hand to any music. You know, I've seen pictures of him playing banjos, guitars, violins, flutes. You know, the man's talent was in abundance, and yet outside of perhaps the people that went to see his band up in you know, where he comes from, I was near Sheffield, up that sort of way. Matlock, I think it might have been actually. You know, people don't know who he is, and it amazes me because he's such a talented bloke. I mean, you know, all right, he didn't do chart music. I mean, who else? I mean, Prince was fucking versatile. I mean, I can't stand his music, but you know, I'm not going to say that he weren't talented in all the musical instruments he could play. But Ben should be that famous as well because he was just as good in a different way. I'll get off my soapbox now.
So yeah, the thing is, it's something that has been apparent for years, in fact, probably decades. People just look down on this kind of music. They don't treat it as, you know, to use a term that I detest, they don't treat it as proper music. Of course it fucking is. You know, it needs to be composed. You know, you've got to be able to write music in the first place. If you can't write music, then, you know, you can have, you know, the greatest fucking audio drivers in the world and all the ability of programming a computer that, you know, you could possibly get. But if you can't write music, it's going to sound like shit. And the proof is certainly with something like this, where he's not got a very complex you know, audio set here that he is using, but because the guy can write music, it still sounds great. You make the you know, make the most of what you've got in front of you. That is the best way of writing music, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on something there as well. You know, the guy I do some videos with, my friend Jeff Sassamisa 1806. I remember, I can't remember if it was like a job or a unit at college, but he said to me, like, in the past, you know, he's had people go, oh, look at this to him, he listens to Space Invaders, because he'd have tapes full of SID music and arcade music and stuff like that him and his brother had recorded off their machines, and that's what people thought, oh, he's listening to Space Invaders, boop, 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 and just take the piss out of it, which is like, you know, Jeff's a fairly unassuming character and he's quite peaceful. Well, really what he should have done was give him a good punch up the bollocks. Right, yes. Anyway, moving on.
On that bombshell.
On that bombshell. Right,
myself. Right, number 2 from Mr. Hubbard. It's sticking with the genre of, I think it's a pretty shit game actually, Mastertronic. This is the title track to Phantoms of the Asteroid, and it came out apparently in 1986. This is probably one of the longest tracks I've picked. And another epic track.
Yeah, I know that one really well. I had that game back in the day.
Yeah, I like that one too. Now that one, what Chris was saying on the last one, that he could hear Crazy Comets coming through. I could really hear it coming through on it. Now, if Rob Hubbard had done an album at the time, that would have been on the same album as Crazy Comets. You know, no, it doesn't sound like Crazy Comets at all. You know, the tune is totally different. But you could hear the instruments were very, very similar, nigh on the same. So that would have been on. If he'd done an album called Crazy Comets, that would have been one of the tracks on the album, and that's not a bad thing because Crazy Comets is what got me into this craziness.
And you would have Sanction and Monty on the Run on that same album.
Oh, I don't know. I
No,
think
not sanctioned. He'd
No,
tweaked his drivers quite a bit before he came
There
on.
was a bit of Sanction, I heard.
To be honest, you can hear in this that he's tweaked his audio drivers. The percussion sound in this is better than the percussion sound in Crazy Comets. I mean, Crazy Comets does not have very many weak points, but it's not got the greatest percussion sound in it. It's still good enough, but the percussion sound here is a lot better. I don't know if it's just me, but I can hear a sort of like 1950s rock and roll sort of vibe in this one. Looking at your... Okay, for a minute I thought, no, it is just me.
No, I hadn't thought about it, but now you mention it, I see where you're going with it.
But yeah, that is a good one. That yeah, I've always liked that one. The game was okay. It wasn't remarkable. It was fucking difficult, I'll tell you that. But yeah, it was all right. Yeah,
I mean, when you look at it, I mean, it was a Mastertronic game. I mean, that piece of music's worth £1.99. You know,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, that was, I mean, you really couldn't lose when you were buying Mastertronic games around this time, because there was a good chance you were going to get a Rob Hubbard piece of music there, and for £2, you know, it was worth it just for that. I mean, I was quite happy spending £10 on Ocean games just to get decent music, so £2 on a Mastertronic one was a fucking no-brainer.
Well, seeing as that was that was possibly your longest piece, I'm hoping I'm not going to spoil anything now when I say, if you think buying for £1.99 the adventure game Ken Tiller, the soundtrack you got from that, I mean, that was I mean,
it was 13 minutes, was it, or something there, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be loads of different tracks for different parts of the game, and they couldn't get it to work properly, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just make one big track out of all of it, and he did, and it is there's a new genre I'm starting now, it's called Prog Sid. We've already had one from Ben Daglish, and Rob Hubbard done it with that. Detert does it all the time. Prog
Sid it all the time, yeah.
What about Master of Magic? Was that not quite a long track, if I remember rightly?
It's about the same length as this one, I think. It was a great piece of music. It's one of my top fives for Rob Hubbard pieces, Master of Magic. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was particularly proggy sounding, and it certainly didn't have the prog duration.
You can't go wrong with that. And again, I mean, I don't know if you're doing these in year order, Al, because I'm not sure of the years.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
But like Chris said, because he's updated his drivers, you can hear the progression. Like, you know, the last one you played was good. This one, he's tweaked a few things, and it's even better. And then, you know, as you get further on with stuff like, I don't know, arcade classics and you know, some of the stuff he was doing right towards the end of it before he kind of petered out and went off to do something else. It was
he went Amiga, didn't he?
Yeah, you can hear that he's fucked with it a bit, and all for the better.
What Sorry, we're kind of moving away. What tracks did he do on the Amiga then? He went to, was it
He
Electronic
went to
Arts?
EA. So
I think it was,
he did the music for Indy 500, which was not good, and he did the
PGA
music
Tour
for
Golf.
Oh, did you do that as well?
Yeah, that
he also
weren't, that
did-
weren't bad.
He also did Centurion again. Yeah, he didn't make the transition to the Amiga very well.
Let's
But then
also
few of them did.
let's also remember that EA at this time was the Trip Hawkins EA, not the fucking clusterfuck it is these days. Yeah, and as you said last time, on that bombshell. Right, Chris, what you got?
Right. Well, I said in the last one that it was Subtune 2, which of course it wasn't because there weren't any subtunes. This is the one that I was meant to say that for. So, yeah, Subtune 2 from 1987. This is Thunder Force, which I'm pretty sure is a game. There we go. We were saying earlier about how you thought his first song that I played sounded a bit like Rob Hubbard. I mean, how much more like Spellbound do you want that one to sound?
That was going to be my first thing. That's like Spellbound the remix, and I don't mean that in any derogatory way at all. I mean, there's nothing wrong. I mean, we all emulate computers. What's wrong with emulating one of the most influential computer game musicians of the 1980s? Nothing at all.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that. Was it the percussion? I think in particular did sound very Hubbard-esque. I think.
I wouldn't have said the percussion. It was the lead melody, not the actual like the way it's played, but the sound. Oh, that was very very Spellbound. This one, it's got quite an epic sort of feel to it. You get the impression that if this was used in a film soundtrack, it would be like the build-up to some huge fucking off-great battle that's about to take place. And this is the music that will be playing over it as everyone is like moving into position before it all fucking kicks off.
What was the game? Was it Thunder Force?
I I'll tell you what,
yes.
Chris. If you want to find out what the game looked like, along the top line there above Johannes' picture, there's one that says GB64. If it was in a game, there's normally a screenshot there. I know the people at home watching won't see it, but it kind of shows.
Ah,
I might put pictures up, seeing as we're seeing them. You never know.
wonderful.
Doesn't look like the kind of game that would grab me, I must admit. But
I don't know why it's got John Pertwee at the top there. No idea what that's about.
Yeah, well, it says arcade beat 'em up, so
yeah,
it wasn't really beat 'em up music, was it? Like you said,
No.
Spellbound fit the game, and that was like Spellbound. I was expecting something a bit more swords and sorcery to beat 'em up, but you know, it's what it is.
I was expecting sort of like, huge great armies, whether it's like, modern day like tanks or something, or like back in medieval times or something like that. Not a horizontal beat 'em up anyway.
It looks a bit shit, but
Yeah, no, I can't fault the music. I mean, there was a bit in the middle of that where it was just almost like the bass and the percussion sounds. And just the way he timed the percussion to the bass reminded me of it's like seconds in Where Eagles Dare by Maiden, and I will mention them again, Alan. So fuck you. Where it's like the bass and the drum are so perfectly timed together, and it really reminded me of that. It is literally like seconds of music, just maybe one 4 bar of music or whatever, but it's just that. Little things like that I pick up on in music, and I love it. I mean, although I'm not over familiar with Bjerregaard's music, I've never heard anything shit by him. Same as Jaron. I know his music very well, and some of his are better than others, but I've never heard anything that's made me sort of like want to send him a message saying, "Are you fucking sure about that?" It's good stuff. And that just goes to prove it. That was really good. I really like that. I'm glad I got to record that, because that means that I'm putting it into my SIDFX playlist.
yeah, it's definitely worth inclusion. But I think it's fair to say that Maniacs of Noise were, by some distance, the best of all the groups, for lack of a better word, when it came to C64 musicians. So in order to be either asked to join or whatever it was, whatever the process was that led to you becoming part of Maniacs of Noise, you've got to be fucking good. Clearly Johannes Bjerregaard is that fucking good. Sadly was that fucking good.
yeah.
And like I say, the first 2 choices and the remaining 4, I think will all prove that.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, with him passing away recently, I've got no problem if he ends up being the star of the show. It's deserved. I mean, like you're saying there, I mean, you think of some of the people that have been through the Maniacs of Noise, and you've got Charles Deanan himself, Doran Tell, then you've got the likes of Marcus Klein that's been in and out. I think Marcus Schneider was in there.
Ren.
You got Ren. The names that you throw up from that are unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've forgotten some there.
I'm sure we have, yeah. But, I mean, every single one of them are genuinely great 64 musicians. But you don't even have to have 64 in there. They are all genuinely great musicians. And,
Stamp of quality when you get that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, anyone that's that hasn't seen it, I mean, if you're watching this, the chances are you have. I won't put a link up because it's not on my channel, but if you go into YouTube and you search for Ren Auerhand's Whizball cover on sort of like what people would call real instruments, like pianos and that is something to behold, because he programs each bit in and then plays the next bit over the top, then plays the next bit, and it is absolutely stunning sound-wise. And that's not the only thing he's done. He's also done a couple of covers recently as a tribute to Johannes himself, because he said even though they never met, they become quite good friends digitally. So it was a nice thing that he done. So they're on his channel as well.
I think YouTube is screaming out for Maniacs of Noise documentary. The whole background, how did you get involved? How did it come together? What was the criteria to get picked?
Well, I'll see what I can do, but fucking
Yeah,
hell,
well,
I'll
it's
have to-
Yeah, that's probably
We'll
be
leave that
quite
one
a
with
difficult
you,
thing to do that. Yeah, I mean,
That'd
it
be
would
good.
be great. I mean, I would absolutely fucking watch it, but yeah,
Watch it. If I make it, you're going to fucking be in it. You.
Oh, well, that's the quality of that now gone down the fucking toilet, isn't it? Eh?
Oh dear. Right, moving along.
Moving swiftly on, yeah.
Yeah. Right. My next one. Now I will straight away say that this is a so-so piece of music. It's a nice SID, but it's quite repetitive. It's only 3 minutes and 46 seconds. But the reason I've chose this is, and I mean, I'll show you the game afterwards. The game is absolute fucking dog shit. But this piece of music, Blood Brothers, it starts off and it doesn't really build or do much. Then all of a sudden, there is this absolute manic, superb, creative Ben Daglish solo in it, and I've included it purely for that solo. But you know, we don't do our music in here anymore, so we're going to have the whole thing. Yeah, it's worth listening to for the last minute or so. It's absolutely brilliant. See what you think. There you go. That is worth the whole wait for that solo for me, because I think it's brilliant. And if he didn't write that on a guitar, then I'll eat my SID chip. I mean, all right, I won't eat my SID chip, but I'm going to say it anyway. That was, to me, that is fucking stellar.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the first couple of minutes are as dull as dishwater, and I would have probably switched it off before then. But obviously, you told us that it was going to kick off, and it did. I mean, the last couple of minutes were brilliant.
Well, there's one area that I don't agree with you two. I thought that was great from start to finish. I would put that as one of my favourite Ben Daglish pieces of music. I think that's great. I really am a fan of that one.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever heard it before?
No.
Oh right. I mean, I didn't say I didn't like it. You know, I said it doesn't really go in there, and all of a sudden it turns into that fucking guitar solo.
Yeah. As I said, I mean, your description, I was thinking, okay, so the first, couple of minutes or so are going to be a bit dull and not really doing anything. Oh, no, not at all. I thought it was a great build-up right from the start. Yeah, I really like that one.
I don't know whether... Sorry, Panther. I don't know whether StreamYard wasn't really picking it up, but the second half, it was quite kind of distorted and quite kind of faded away a wee bit, so I'm looking forward to hearing the kind of finished article, and it's kind of SID stereo glory.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, that's fair enough, Al. Yeah, it will be. It will come straight from the SID chips. What did you actually think of the solo, Chris? Being a fan of guitar music, I know you're not the greatest fan of solos, but doing that on a SID chip, something else.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, I think more than anybody on YouTube that I'm not the biggest fan of guitar solos, but trying to make any other instrument sound like it's playing a guitar solo is unbelievably difficult. That was a fucking good stab at it. Yeah, it's definitely one of the better attempts at putting a guitar solo in when you're not actually using a guitar. It's almost a thankless task because I think it's so difficult as to not really be worth trying. Clearly, Ben didn't agree. He thought it was well worth trying, and he did. Yeah, he did do a fucking good job of it.
Yeah, I mean, the game itself looks shit.
Christ almighty.
I have played it, but I don't remember that music, so I don't think I played the 64 version. But yeah, the game is absolute fucking pants. Don't waste your time on it. I remember it. I remember the review of it in Zap64. They fucking mauled it as well, and deservedly so.
This is 1988 for a massive software house like Gremlin Graphics. I mean, I don't want to make people that like the Amstrad kick off, but that looks like was it Mode 1 Amstrad game where it's just got 4 colours. And they've just blocky ported something from the Spectrum. That's what that looks like. I'm gonna have to put pictures up on all these now, and because we're talking about it. But yeah, that looks so shit.
Far too many browns for my liking. A bit of fucking cyan as well.
I say it's not the brown that's the problem. It's all the fucking cyan there. Jesus Christ.
Mamemeister, I think you'll find that's actually orange, but carry on.
It's Yeah, it's like, the design brief was let's make the player's fucking eyes bleed.
I don't think cyan's ever a colour you should use in a game, especially not in that quantity. It's a horrible colour.
See, now this is when I don't want to drift off too much, but this is when I've moaned about the Spectrum. That's what used to get me when I was a kid. Was when you'd play something. The 64 was guilty of it on Head Over Heels. Is where you'd get an entire screen of bright yellow or bright cyan, and then like the black graphics in between. And I found it worse on the Spectrum because its color palette is so vibrant. Yeah. Whereas the 64 is a bit more muted, but cyan is fucking cyan, and that is eye bleed, as Chris said.
So the worst game for suffering that. Whatever you do not play it, but the Spectrum version of Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I love the 64 version. It's a great game. It's fucking surreal, but I really do fucking love playing that game. Spectrum version, yeah, your eyes are bleeding within the first 10 minutes. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
A little subtlety in the colour palette goes a long way. That's why I know we're going way off topic here, but I always hate it when Spectrum owners keep going on about 64 colours are all like really dull and muddy and all that. I would much rather have that than these colours that are just like so in your face, so fucking bright all the time. It's fucking horrible. It's going to give you like eye strain headaches every fucking time.
I seem to remember you turned off one of Alan's live streams as Spectrum on before because it was making you feel ill. I think you only lasted about a quarter of an hour.
Well, there was one, it was very fast, and because it was so bright, I could feel myself, like it felt like I was going to have a fucking epileptic fit, so I had to stop it, I had to go.
Yeah, well, meanwhile, back on the music. We just ripped off here. Sorry, listeners. A great stab at a guitar solo. I really like that. I've never played the game. I listened to a lot of Ben's stuff when he passed away, and then I had subsequently recorded an album for C64 Audio.com, and I don't think I actually put that one on the album because it was just I just wanted to do one disc and I wanted to get it out quick but make it not look like a cash cow. Where it weren't anyway because it was free. But I didn't want to make it seem disingenuous or disrespectful. So I picked a lot of the ones that a lot of people really know of his. And like you say, Chris, you've got a wide range of SID music and you'd never heard that before. So it's clearly not a famous one. And looking at the game, it ain't a fucking surprise.
No, not at all. But the music is definitely worthy of inclusion on a Ben Daglish album.
Yeah.
It's just a pity, probably not a lot of folk got to listen to that SID tune when they fucking saw how wank the actual game was. But
well, hopefully every one of my 628 subscribers at the time of recording will have a listen and it'll up it by that many. That won't happen, but yeah, you can dream. Right then, now back to the Hubster, Dr. Hubbard himself.
Right, number 3. It's a game called Monty on the Run, and it's not the track that you thought it was going to be. I've gone for track number 3, which is the High Score tune. I think it's quite a short one, but it's a classic. Let's take it away. they'll never ever tire of listening to that. I think it's an absolutely fantastic tune.
Yeah, and I was going to say, there's probably a lot of people that haven't heard that all the way through because, you know, Monty on the Run is a popular game. That's the high score table, which means game over. And unless you've completed it, you're going to want to get straight back in again. So you quickly tap your name in and bang, you're off. So a lot of people have only ever heard a few seconds of that. It's actually a really good piece of music. I don't know why, but I can imagine that being played on an accordion in a Parisian cafe, you know, the ones they have outside. It's just like a melancholy sort of morning breakfast tune. It's just something about it. It reminds me of that. Don't ask me why. I suppose music does that, sends you off on a train of thought, doesn't it? But yeah, I think that's a great piece. And it is overlooked because it's effectively a game over tune.
Yeah, glorious. Absolutely fucking fantastic. I loved that piece. Yeah, when I saw Monty on the Run, I was thinking, oh no, because to be honest, the main Monty on the Run piece of music, it has seek and destroy syndrome as far as I'm concerned. So I am truly sick to death of it. But yeah, that high score is superb. It doesn't suit the game at all, I think, but I don't care. You know, it's almost too good for the game. But yeah, it's fantastic. Nothing but praise for that.
The second half of it with that kind of whiny kind of tune, it actually makes the kind of hairs on your back stick up. It's actually really haunting. How Hubbard managed that with a SID chip is beyond me.
You want to try the orchestral version, mate?
Yeah,
it's really
nice.
good as well. There's one that's kind of a mix of the two, and yeah, it ends up with that, and that is really, really good. Then, as you say, you want haunting, chuck a load of violins at it. It's really, really good. Violins and cellos really do that justice. It's a great piece. Yeah, it just got me thinking while it was playing about that. It is sad that there's a lot of people that won't have heard much of it, and yeah, it's a fantastic piece. Yeah, I used to like if I played Monty on the Run, it was one of them games. If I wanted to play it, I'd only normally play it once, because if you get that far in it, you go back to the beginning. This is in the days before, you know, save states and games holding your hand and saving every 5 minutes. You know, if you played that game for 15 minutes and got halfway through it and you got a game over, fuck starting again. So I used to listen to that music, then reset the 64. So I used to listen to it all the way through.
I thought it was a hollow dig at my lackey gaming prowess. You'll never have fucking heard that before, Al, but and you'd be right.
I would imagine you know that better than anyone.
The game over one, I know that one.
Oh dear.
Does also have to be said that you can hear similarities between that and the Commando high score music.
Yeah.
That's my favourite, but yeah, very, very similar.
Yeah. The Commando one. I think the Commando one fits the game better because the Commando one does have elements of the main theme tune, whereas that one doesn't have quite so many, if you know what I mean. Clearly not.
No, I agree.
All right, sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Right then. Back to Camp Bjerregaard.
Right. Now, there have been a few occasions when we have spoken about the music to Aztec Challenge and how good that would sound if someone like the Fast Loaders or Press Play on Tape did a version of it. This is another one. I can just imagine if Fast Loaders did a version of this. Oh, I bet that would sound fucking great. It's quite a short one. It's not even 2 minutes, so maybe let it loop twice. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, let it loop twice.
Okay, so from 1987, this is from a game, Subtune 1. This is Tiger Mission.
fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it got a real like heavy rock, almost metal sort of vibe to it. That.
Yeah, while that was playing, I had a look on the Kickstarter I backed for C64 Rocks to see if the fast loaders were going to do it. It's not in the list. There isn't, and many more. Now, you know, I sort of know the guitarist and main man of the fast loaders. I might send him a message later and say, seeing as we've lost Johannes Bjerregaard, you know, Tiger Mission by any chance? I mean, it's already a rock song, so I'll see if I can fit and work that one in. But I think they've already recorded it. But I'll have a go.
It's worth a shot. I mean, it's it sounds great as it does here as a SID. Performed by a rock band, I bet that would sound fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I think it would. That was really good. I mean, and you can tell, even though this is only 87, that has drifted away from the Rob Hubbard sound a bit. You can still hear elements, but it's drifted away because, of course, when Rob Hubbard does stuff with guitars he tended to use like the sample synth guitar sounds, whereas that was purist SID.
Yeah.
No, that was good. It just grabs you by the balls from the off kind of thing. Punch you kind of track, never kind of let up. That was excellent.
Yeah, I don't recall hearing that one before. I'm assuming a Tiger Mission. Is it a shoot 'em up?
I have no idea. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, right, okay.
Looks like it's going to be on a similar sort of vein to something like Swiv or something like that, maybe.
Yeah. Or Tiger Heli, possibly, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, see, I've reached a quandary point now that's going to disappoint some people, depending on, well, do I put pictures up or do I record short gameplay videos while we're talking about it? Who knows? You can never tell with me.
I think, you know, screenshots will suffice. That'll be fine. Mind you, I would suggest that, you know what I'm like, when it comes to video editing, I do the minimum amount I can get away with and no more. So, yeah.
Yes, I remember very well. Anyway, it's only Marillion. Yeah, I remember that very well because you couldn't bother to fucking edit it.
No, that one was genuine, right? I'd done about 4 attempts at it and the fucking editing program kept going wrong. So in the end I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm just putting in the first 3 minutes, you know, fucking deal with it, you know. And yeah, it was only Marillion, so, you know, there's no big deal. If you can have a dig at Iron Maiden, I'm going to have a fucking dig at Marillion, all right?
Well, you can have all the digs at Maiden he wants. He's the only one out of the three of us that's got tickets to the next.
Exactly.
Now, up next, I've got a sneaking suspicion at least one or both of you would have expected this to turn up. It's a bit of a long one. Buckle in. Well, not including that, when you're talking about Ben Daglish, he's like talking about Black Sabbath and not mentioning Ronnie James Dio, and also showing once again the actual versatility and quality that was in Tony Crava's player.
Yeah, I mean, there is something almost symphonic about it. It's I realise I say that and I'm the only one of the three of us who actually likes orchestral music, but
not strictly true, but carry on.
To me, it has three very distinctive movements, but you can't just listen to like the second movement or the third movement individually. You've got to hear it all the way through. I do think this is one of, if not the greatest piece that Ben Daglish ever did. It does show, what I was saying earlier on, you've got to have that ability to write music. If you don't have that, then, you know, don't bother. You know, technical ability only gets you so far. And here he is. He's taken, say, what are relatively, a relatively simple player, and he has created that. It's a fucking masterpiece. It really is. And it shows that, you know, if you've got that ability to write music, then, you know, even with a fairly simple set like this, you can create something that is just simply astounding.
And that is the one he was supposed to conduct at the 8-Bit Symphony. You know, that classical music I listen to that I don't like, Chris. That I've been involved with since the start. But apart from that, it's an epic. It is an epic, and it is symphonic, and there is a version of it within the 8-Bit Symphony, and you know, my brain doesn't remember everything, but I'm pretty sure that the initial workings out for it, with like Chris Abbott and Rob Hubbard and what's his name, Alistair Pickering, and I think the conductor's Robin Tate. When they were doing it, I'm pretty sure Ben had input on the version of this that appeared in the symphony. So it was something that was played posthumously. I remember the first one they played up in Hull in 2019 was like 8 months after he died, and I remember seeing a post from Chris Abbott. Someone was asking him how the day was going. And he just answered, "I wish Ben was here." I mean, you know, and he was only conducting one song, but he was such a big character. You know, he was always bouncing around, and you know, I got the feeling I didn't really know Ben. I spoke to him a couple of times online. I never got to meet the man, but I got the impression from him he took shit from no one, and if you were having a bad day, you spoke to Ben and he was able to lift your spirits. And music like that, that's an uplifting piece of music. It really is. It starts off kind of really doomy, and then you got that piece from Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, and then it goes off complete Ben Daglish. It is a really uplifting piece.
Yeah, I've not got an awful lot to add other than what you guys have said. That's a fucking fantastic piece of music. I almost found it was distracting having all the shit going on watching that. You really want to sit in a darkened room with a decent set of headphones or a decent set of speakers and just listen to that. It was very kind of War of the Worlds as well. I mean, there was a trap demo that they came out with the guy sort of hitting the drum and all that with the UFO coming down, and it's brilliant. But no, that's got to be one of the probably top 10 SID tunes of all time. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Well, I mean, it's been used a lot. I mean, if you on the tab up there that we can see that everyone else won't see, it's got 162 CSDB entries. You know, what's that? The Commodore software database, 162. Oh, yeah. So it's been used in the game trap and the trap demo. That was that hidden within the game? I can't remember offhand.
I think it was. I think you're right. Actually.
And then of course. another 160 like demos and whatnot it's been in. I mean, Trap itself weren't the best of games. I mean, I like the little Game Over jingle as well that sounds like a guitar riff. But yeah, that is something else. And I was umming and ahhing about including it because I realised that a lot of Ben's stuff isn't that long, and yet that one's just shy of 10 minutes. And I thought, there's no way, if I'm featuring Ben in a show, there's no way I'm not putting Trap in there. You know, it's just one of them things. You know, even though we played it before on Alan's channel, if I'd have done a Thomas the Turk, you can guarantee that Goldie and Toon would have been in there. 32 minutes, get on with it. Yeah, it's just one of them. It's one of them ones I think you've got to have when you talk about Ben, and it's not my favourite piece by him, but I think it's his best piece.
Yeah. It's a standalone piece of music. Beautiful.
Yeah, it certainly is. Right, Al, over to you. Top that.
That's a tough one, but this next one is another Mastertronic game. It's a game that I never ever played. Flash Gordon, based on the TV program, I think, or was it the film? I'm not quite sure. And this is the title track. If I can find my fucking mouse, there it is. There, let's go. There we have it.
So that's one that I do think fits the game, even though it's got. I think that's based on the comic book rather than the than anything else. But it has got a suitably heroic sound to it. The music.
It's not a favourite of mine. I love the first 18 seconds. I love the intro to it. But after that, it's I know loads of people rave about this one, but I've never seen why. I think it is quite an overrated piece of his.
Yeah,
I think it's got a kind of film score kind of sort of feel to it. It's quite repetitive. I don't know what the big massive gap. There's a kind of a bit of a 10-second gap of silence. I don't know what's going on there, but I think
it's like the gap between the main overture and into the first movement. It seems to be structured in that sort of way, which again lends it towards a sort of film soundtrack idea. But it's based on the comic book characters. The game is, rather than any film or other. I'm trying to remember. Is it the 30s or is it even earlier than that when the first Flash Gordon comic started?
I don't know about the comic. I'm pretty sure it was the 30s that the
Larry
one,
Crabb was doing those. Yeah, they were great. Those I still enjoy watching them today.
There's loads of them on YouTube. Anyone that's interested, full serials as well. It's like 3 hours long.
And they have all of them. The original Flash Gordon. They got Trip to Mars and Conquers the Universe. So yeah, they got the lot.
Yeah, no, I quite like. Opposite to Chris, really. I really do quite like that. I'm pretty sure this one has had the symphony makeover. So maybe I'll let you have a listen to that and a later point, and you can have a rethink on the film. I mean, what about composition-wise? Is that what you think it's lacking in, or just the SID sounds that have been used?
The big problem I have with it is more the SID sounds. There's a part right near the start, after the bit that I actually like, the intro part. There's a bit where, I mean, let's face it, it can't have been done by accident. It must have been intentional. But it sounds like you've got the percussion is bleeding into parts of what the main melody is doing. so you keep getting these sort of like noises in where the main melody is playing, and for me it just doesn't work, and it spoils it. And unfortunately, it does hang around quite a long time. By the time it's gone, it's I've sort of had enough of it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I suppose so. A lot of that could be that a lack of sound channels means they've got to tack the percussion in where they can normally.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the case, hasn't it, with SID music? And let's face it, Hubbard was probably the one that pioneered, doing that. He realised that you've got to somehow combine the drum track and the bass track together. So, yeah, I don't believe that it was an accident or it was, oh, well, this will have to do sort of thing. I think it was done by design. It just doesn't work for me. That's the bottom line there.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've played back the ones I recorded, but I seem to remember someone wrote a review of one of the SID Effects albums. I think it was the first one. And he'd listened to the Monty on the Run tune, and he'd played a standard, like Breadbin 64 6581 version, and then he'd played my one. And he said there's bits in it where, because of the way the SID chips work, it's kind of stopped from covering up instruments and that. So I'm wondering if in the re-edit, when that's played through again, I wonder if that might lessen a bit. So I say I can't remember. It's been so long since I played the recorded version of that. I don't know. But if that's the case, maybe you might be able to get more enjoyment out of it. I don't know.
Possibly, but like I say, I think it is there by design. So I don't know if that is going to have any effect. But obviously, I'll give it a go. We'll see what happens when we hear the finished article. But yeah, I don't think it's going to make much difference because I don't think it's an accident or anything like that. I think it was intentional on his part.
Well, that's a fair comment. You clearly like it, Al, because you've included it.
Yeah, I just think it's a great piece. I think it would really add to the game. Never played the game, to be honest, but I think it would certainly add to it. I mean, it's a good 6.5 minute long.
What was the there was a Flash Gordon game. I'm not sure what one it was. I know the Commodore 64 one. He was in green with his cap on. He had really sort of wide legs.
That was Dan Dare, I think.
That was Dan Dare, right? Yeah, okay.
Dan Dare, aye.
Yeah, because that game was different on every fucking computer they put it on. I was just trying to work out if it was this one or no. Dan Dare, yeah. Well, similar, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Dare was basically Britain's Flash Gordon, so yeah, you can see why a lot of people do get the two mixed up.
Yeah, but nice one, Al. I do quite like that one myself.
Good.
Right, back to you, Chris.
Right, we've had some pretty long ones these last two, and that's going to continue. This is the longest SID that I have chosen by a fair distance. It's just shy of 7 minutes. So from 1988, this is Twilight Beyond.
Yeah, good stuff.
I'm pretty sure that it says 1988. Now I'm pretty sure that's late '88 after he had joined Maniacs of Noise, because I can really hear the influence of other members of Maniacs of Noise in that, especially when it comes to the percussion and the bass line there. I think, he'd obviously, by this time, he was familiar with certainly Yaron Tell's music there. He's still using his own player, but he's obviously tweaked it quite a bit. So it sounds a bit more like the Maniacs of Noise player that Charles Dean put together. It works, so it just sounds great.
It tweaked it. He's got no right to have a drum sound like that without fucking samples. That's unbelievably good.
Yeah, really sort of like crisp snare drum sound there. That does sound really good. And the bass sound that he's using there does sound quite similar to the bass that he had in the Secret Agent piece of music. And if you remember that far back when I chose that in whichever one of the videos it was, however many years ago, I did say that was one of the flaws with that piece of music, because the decay rate on the bass was too fast. Of course, what he was doing was he wanted it to sound like slap bass, not like a regular sort of bass sound, which is fine in the right piece. Now, this is certainly the right piece because there's a lot of bass notes being played there. But with Special Agent, there were a lot of gaps, and it just didn't quite work. It would have sounded better, I think, if he'd had like a regular bass sound with a little bit more of a decay rate there. And it's seriously nitpicking with that one, but that was the only flaw with it. But here it works because you've got like that slap bass sound there playing all the way through a pretty good pace. So there's no gaps anymore, and it just really does work.
Yeah, I've got nothing bad to say about that. I mean, yeah, like you say, you can hear the. You can hear the influences of Messrs. Deanan and Tell coming through there for sure. You know, I mean, I don't know if you've got a sort of picked order, Chris, but yours have kind of gone. Sounds like Hubbard, sounds a bit like Hubbard, sounds like both, sounds like Maniacs of Noise. So I don't know if you're doing that on purpose.
It wasn't intentional, no. My last two may disrupt that order a little bit, but certainly wasn't the intention, but yeah, it has worked out that way for sure.
Was that in a game at all, Lukozer? Do you know?
I don't think it was.
It's not showing anything in GB64. Again, never heard of that piece, but I tend to kind of look down at the ground and just enjoy it as a piece of music. It's fantastic, It's what these guys are knocking out is just incredible.
Well, that goes to show how good they are as musicians. If you can switch off that it's being played on what was predominantly used as a gaming machine, to switch off and listen to it as a piece of music, that shows that they're doing it right.
Oh yeah. I think this came from a demo. So I mean, I have no idea how big the file is, but it's probably slightly larger than your average game sort of music file. Mind you, I say that. I mean, look at some of those Jason Page ones that really give the SID chip a workout, and it turns out they're 8K. I mean, for crying out loud,
Well, yeah. I mean, didn't we have a look before at both tunes from Gordian Tomb, which adds up to nearly 34 minutes, with something like 11.5K.
Yeah, it's fucking unreal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It almost does these SID tunes an injustice. If that was tagged onto some shitty game getting played through a mono kind of 14-inch TV, you want to listen to that in proper speakers, decent stereo, really.
Well, that's the thing though, because when music like this was written, they were written knowing that was the sort of setup that they were going to be listened to. So that sort of thing never stopped them. They were quite happy to go ahead and still put all this effort into a piece of music, which the other thing, of course, is I don't think any of them believed for one fucking second that music they were writing in 1988 for a Commodore 64 was still going to have an audience in November 2022. So I think they really undervalued themselves back then.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is. I mean, I've said it to you too before. When I spoke to Rob Hubbard's wife, I said, "Does he know what an impact he's had on all these people in this room?" She goes, "Well, he didn't, but I think he's beginning to." And then I asked him to sign my shirt. He went, "You want me to sign your shirt?" And I went, "Yeah, please." And that shirt, I don't wear it anymore. It's in a frame up on my wall over there. Yeah, no, that was good. I'm not familiar with that one myself. Like I said, I know quite a few of Johannes' music, but that's not one I was familiar with. It's going to go on my playlist. Let's put it that way.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many pieces of art that were made back in the day that you could say now you've got the bigger platform to actually really give it the full experience. But SID music now, being able to play it through proper music and stereo as well, just really elevates. It's taken something that was fucking brilliant to begin with, and you're getting it to enjoy it in such a bigger kind of scale.
Well, do you remember when you came and stayed here last year, Al, and you said, well, show me what your SID stuff sounds like through your amp then, and I played you Yeah Kung Fu, Martin Galway's Magnetic Fields cover through Magnetic Fields, isn't it?
Yeah.
Through my surround sound, and you were like, fucking hell, and then you filmed it so you could put it on your Facebook page. But yeah, you saying about that with these musicians now. I mean, I added Chris to a Facebook group, 65818580 music the other day. And I don't know how much you look at that, Chris, on Facebook, because I know you're not a big social media fan. But there's like 5 or 6 new SIDs every day on that, at least.
Yeah, I've had a look through some of them, say not daily, because there are times when social media, I just want to stay the fuck away from it. But yeah, I've heard several new ones. Obviously, when I did first join there, it was around the time that Johannes Bjerregaard died, and we were getting a lot of people posting stuff, like their tributes to his music. And it all, there was a lot of stuff there that I wasn't familiar with. It all sounded great, and the same applies to the new stuff here. Yeah,
so that was a absolutely stunning track, mate. That was a good choice. They're definitely going into rotation.
Yeah, good idea.
Right. Well, me, however, going from the symphonic trap that we had last time, I'm going to stay in that neck of the woods with something a bit more serene and, medieval. There you go. Complete departure from everything else I've played this evening. But that is a tune that is really well composed. Again, showing versatility with like harpsichord sounds and stuff like that. And it does fit the game that it goes with. Well, at least I think so. Anyway, I really like that. I mean, normally, me with SIDs, I like the stuff more like what Chris just played. You know, the stuff that's got the really strong bass, drum, and lead and all that on it. And that's like a twee little tune compared to everything else. But I think it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, totally agree. It absolutely fits. I mean, can you bring up the screen for the game? It's it's set in sort of like Victorian, whatever it is. Looking at that, yeah, it does. It fits the game absolutely perfectly. Cracking use of voices as well. Really nice.
I think it predates Victorian somewhat. I was a bit more Henry VIII, I think.
Maybe I.
Yeah,
it's never good at history, but anyway, yeah.
It certainly has a very medieval sound to it. I remember the game file, or don't remember the music to it though. It's not a favourite. It's good for what it is, but yeah, it's not one of the more memorable ones for me. The thing with stuff that's not only was this meant to sound like a medieval type piece of music, I think it was also the intention. And it did work here, it was meant to sound like it had actually been written from that time as well. And of course, it does mean that it is going to be a bit simplistic. And yeah, I mean, it worked for as far as that, but it's not one that's going to stick in my memory for a long time. That.
Well, no. at least they didn't fucking use green sleeves, which is what they used for everything beforehand. And I mean, you know, again, in Tony Crowther's player, all right, maybe showing a more simplistic side, but of course that player probably would have been used for green sleeves at some point.
Yeah, almost certainly, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a tune you'd want to really listen to in stereo. You wouldn't sit in a darkened room and listen to that. But I think for what he's probably set out to do, and he was probably given, right, we need you to write a game. It's set in not Victorian, Henry VIII time. You need to come up with something. I think he's done exactly what he's probably asked to do.
Yeah,
I think it fits the game perfectly.
I think so. When you listen to that in stereo, you might change your mind, because I have recorded that one before and it sounds pretty fucking good. So we will see. But yeah, I like it, obviously, because I've included it. I was trying to sort of like dip into Ben's catalogue of work and try and pick as many different things as I could. So, you know, I think I've covered that base now. That's the last of the medieval stuff I'll be playing.
Yeah, you're saying about Henry VIII, I think it sounds much earlier now. I mean, Henry V maybe, but yeah.
Any takers for Henry IV? No, that's just something I wanted to play because I like it. It's a bit of a departure. It's a short song. It's just something very different.
Do you know if that is? Oh God.
No, I was just going to say, I think what you've demonstrated tonight is you've shown every side of Ben Daglish. You know, he's able to turn his hand to anything at all. You know, it's a nice skinny range.
Well, to answer, I mean, I agree with you, Al, and to answer Chris's question, there's nothing in the still file, and that's normally where the it'll tell you it's a cover of this or it was written by whoever. There's nothing in there, and I know that Chris Abbott does have a hand in compiling that information. Excuse me, and they were pretty good friends together. So if that was a cover, it would be in there because he knows Ben's work inside out. I mean, he doesn't own the copyright, but he makes sure, like when this video goes out, if he gets a claim up on that and someone plays an advert in the middle of this video we're making, any money of that will go to Sarah, like Ben's widow, and Chris makes sure that happens. So if it's not on there, I'm pretty sure that would be an original piece.
Do you know if that was an in-game piece or a title music?
I think it was the title music, and got a feeling it was one of them games where you could possibly choose in between. So you could have sound effects or music. I think it's been a long while since I played it, but I know it's definitely on the title page, because I remember seeing the word Fire Lord come up with the music playing. So yeah, it's definitely the theme tune.
It sounded more like in-game music to me. That's not to say that I think you're wrong, because I can't remember the music of Fire Lord at all. But it did have in-game music sort of sound to it, which I kind of hope that it wasn't, because you could clearly see it was using all 3 channels, so you'd have had the age-old problem of sound effects interfering with the music. And when you've got a piece like that, you really don't need that going on.
No, that's true. That's the last thing you need is doof, doof, doof going on while you're trying to play harpsichord music.
Yeah. I'm looking at the SID file and SID player, and that's the first one. So I'm assuming that must be the in-game music.
They could be anywhere with a SID file. Sometimes you'll load a SID file up and it'll start playing track 8 because that's the first one that you know. Sometimes it's the loader, sometimes it's the title, but I'm pretty sure that is the title music.
No, nice little piece.
Righto, mate, over to you in Camp Hubbard.
My penultimate, I can speak. My second last one is again obviously by Mr. Hubbard, and it's a track on another Mastertronic game, Formula 1 Simulator, which I remember rightly is a pretty shit game, but I think the music was good.
Yeah, I remember that one really well. I used to have this game, unfortunately. The
It was
music
worth
in
the
it
£2
is great.
for the music. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
worth it.
This is another one like Delta and Zoids and Master of Magic, where it's not an out-and-out cover, but it's very heavily influenced by a particular piece of music. I can't for life remember what the original is for this one. And it's been given like the Rob Hubbard treatment, and it's fucking great. If I was doing a top 10 Hubbard, this would definitely be in it.
It is a good piece of music. I mean, I don't know if I'd have it in my top 10 Hubbard. But that's not to say it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it's another one where you load it up for the music, because the game is
The game's absolute pants, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just
wouldn't
noticed written by Mr. Chip Software, so hopefully that wasn't Sean Southern, because he'll not be speaking to me now. But if it is, that'll be the first bad game that he's written. But yeah, I did own it, and again, I remember playing it and thinking I wasn't impressed with it, but I just the SID track just absolutely grabs you. I mean, it's got a kind of like an F1 kind of sound at the very beginning. It really nails it. A cracking tune.
I mean, I don't know so much that it's the game that's bad, because I mean, as far as I remember, the road routine's pretty good.
It's not
just
bad,
boring.
Yeah.
It's just boring. There's hardly any opposition to overtake, and yeah, it just seems to just go on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One thing I do remember about it is actually there's two things I remember. The blurb in the instructions described it as the ultimate in realism. Oh, fucking yeah, okay. And for a start, the steering wheel looks like it's come from a fucking steamroller. When did you last see a Formula One car that had a steering wheel with 4 spokes in it? Jesus fucking Christ. So, yeah.
If it come off a steamroller, that could quite easily have been McLaren's 2017 car.
And also, I remember the speedo. It went up ridiculously fast, ridiculously quickly, and yet it looked like you were barely moving on the track. The road routine was the only impressive visual thing about the game.
Yeah. Like I said, it was just boring. You'd put it on, and I think it was, if I remember back in the hazy mists of the 80s. It was more a case of, I think I turned it off before I got a game over, because I just got so bored of it. It was a boring game, but again, you know, a lot of the times, like you said earlier, if you spent £2 on a Mastertronic game, you got a penny back, and you know, 60-70% of the time you got a good bit of Rob Hubbard music.
I think if the game was any good or wasn't shit, it was a bonus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much. But I did put out some dross, didn't they, Mastertronic? I mean, I remember that I originally had a Spectrum, and obviously being, you know, sort of like 12 at the time or whatever, it was pocket money. So, you know, £2 a week meant a game a week, and some of the games like St. Bernard and Flying Carpet, oh my God, they were shit then, but because you spent your pocket money on them, you'd have to play them until you could get another game.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember those days all too well. You know, loading up the last V8 simply because it was the last game you got. You know, it's like, oh, fuck.
But it was worth it just. It was worth it just for the music.
I'll tell you what, the last V8 is a game I persevered with, right? And I wouldn't be able to do it now. I could do the first level. And I remember the first time I got to the second level, and I was dead within seconds, because it's even fucking harder.
Yeah.
All these fucking nuclear laser zones and that going off. I was like, what?
Yeah.
The biggest flaw of that game was the fact that you're only actually playing in the top third of the screen. You had the huge last V8, then you had the sort of a map or whatever it was, I can't remember, and then you had a tiny wee bit of screen where you actually played the game. But
that never bothered me too much, because the graphics were small, and obviously at the time I didn't know any better, because there was a lot of games that did that. It was just so fucking hard. I mean, you didn't get lives, did you? It was like literally drive, crash, game over.
Yeah.
Kids these days don't know their
car
ball.
the car was absolutely uncontrollable.
Controls were shocking.
Yeah, it's just one of them games. I mean, like I say, I did persevere with it for a while, and you had to know exactly where to slow down, exactly the right angle to go through, and it took ages to do it. And then I got to level 2, I saw it was more the same but worse, and I think I just used to load it for the music after that.
It also had got an impressive bit of speech at the start as well, I think, if I remember rightly.
I thought the speech in the game was shit.
The
128... The 128 version, the speech was much better, but
was it?
That's about the only good thing about it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you listen to the speech from, say, the early Epix games like Beachhead and Impossible Mission and stuff like that. It was so clear.
Yeah.
And then, all right, Last V8 was another, £2 job, but yeah, it was so grainy, the speech, weren't it? It was really, it sounded like a detuned radio. But you could understand it. I suppose that's one thing you can say in its favour.
Yeah, I think the speech in the last V8 was digitised very crudely, whereas the speech on they used was I can't remember, something synthesis, whatever it was called, Berkeley synthesis or something they actually used. It wasn't digitised. It was phenomenal. I mean, the guy in, I know we're going off topic here, Impossible Mission, he's even got an accent, brilliant.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, the one in the V8 just sounds like some hoodlum going, V8, return to base immediately.
All the Richard Darling that did it,
Yeah, no, good choice, mate. All right, Chris, over to you.
Right, so this one, well, we've had Ben Daglish using Tony Crowder's player. Now we're going to hear Johannes Bjerregaard playing Tony Crowder's player. Don't be put off by the very simple sounding start. This whole thing builds up and up and up. It does sound very simple, but I just think this song is fucking superb. Let's see what you reckon.
Nothing wrong with that. In fact, I would have to say that's not a million miles away from Firelord in its construction.
I think that is fantastic. I mean, it's a music genre that I am not a fan of at all, but that is like power ballad music on a 64. I mean, if ever there was a music genre I thought, oh, there's no way that's going to appear in, as a SID, it would be the power ballad. Well, no, because we just heard it. And this was done in '86, so this was very early in his music writing career. So, yeah, right from the get-go, he had the music writing ability, absolutely.
I've never listened to that one before. To be honest with you, I just assumed wrongly that it was just going to be a Thin Lizzy cover or a Phil Lynott cover and just left it alone.
That's why I first heard it, because the trouble with this song is the title, because I have two ex-girlfriends called Sarah, and whenever I listen to anything that has that name in it, that's why I don't like listening to the Thin Lizzy song. It always sounds like I'm pining for one of them. No, I fucking ain't. I just like the song. I mean, I love the Thin Lizzy song, Sarah, and I do really like this as well. I just ignore what it's called.
Oh, I don't know. Sounds like closet feelings to me. What do you reckon?
Fucking hell.
I thought it was lovely. It's a kind of hark back to the more simple times with SID music. I mean, in the early days of the SID, the C64, most of the music was absolutely shit. You couldn't even call it music, but every now and again along came a really nice piece of music, very simplistic. I mean, he wasn't trying anything too fancy with his voices, whatever, but yeah, it just builds up. I mean, I used to let my mum listen to SID tunes, and she would probably say, that's a lovely piece, son. She would have probably quite enjoyed that. Very kind of classical kind of overtones, but no, really, really nice one.
Yeah, it was definitely good. I mean, like I say, I haven't heard that one before, and yeah, I'm looking forward to actually running that through the SIDs to see what it sounds like.
Yep.
You know, running on actual hardware. I mean, don't get me wrong, people of Deep SID, your web player is fucking brilliant, but the real SIDs are the real SIDs. It's just the way it is, you know.
Yeah,
to me, vinyl will always sound better than CD. It's not because I'm old. It's just got a better. Is it timbre? You're supposed to pronounce it. I always call it timber to wind up my mate's wife who's a music teacher. But yeah, it's just something about it. Yeah, and well, I'm looking forward to listening to that through actual SID chips. Nice one.
Yeah, I'm quite keen to hear the Jaws SID recording for that.
Well, your wish is my command, as they say. Well, on to my last one. Doing a video that I've chosen Ben Daglish for, and I mean, you knew this was coming, but it gives me a chance to play my all-time favourite SID track ever, doesn't it, really? And I'll be a bit of a fool not to. So, I will. You know what it is. You knew it was coming. Let's go. far as I'm concerned, that is SID perfection. But that is obviously only my personal opinion.
Yeah, there was never any doubt that something from The Last Ninja was going to appear on the list. I can now reveal that I was wrong about one of them. I felt certain Cobra was going to get played at some point tonight. So, didn't get that one right.
Well, see, the thing is, I remember when the Zap did the review of that, and they put the first level on the cover tape, and of course, that is what hit my ears as soon as it started, and I was like, what? I was like, fucking hell. The last time that had happened was probably the first time I loaded Sanction, that I was like, I couldn't believe I was hearing that coming out of a Commodore 64. And yeah, it absolutely blew me away. Like I said in the very first show we ever did on Al's channel, not only is that my favourite SID tune, it's also one of my favourite pieces of music because it's just so well composed. And as far as I know, Ben Daglish and Anthony Lee's, it's not a collaboration, this at all. They both did it, but they both did separate tracks. I think Ben did a couple more, and he's using Anthony Lee's player. But I don't even know if they ever sat in the same room or even met. I couldn't tell you. But so it's kind of a misnomer there where it says to both of them. Really, what they should have done is split The Last Ninja up and put Anthony Lee's tracks in his part of the High Voltage SID collection and Ben's in his, but they've lumped them all in together, which, for someone like me that likes the entire soundtrack, that's fine. But yeah, some people would assume it's a collaboration like Alvidas A. Monty was that he done with Rob, but no, they did their songs separately, and that's what come out of it. And I still maintain that is the first full game soundtrack like you get these days, but that is the first one from 1987 where, if you record all the music from that, you get a 45-minute album.
I mean, I remember Zap showing previews of The Last Ninja, and it was going to be the first big, real fucking epic game. And they basically took the cream of Commodore 64 programming. You had Ben Daglish as the composer, and you had, was it Bob Stevenson? He was in the graphics. He was quite prolific. He did a lot of kind of like demos and that kind of stuff. I think he did the loading screen for Sentinel with the big eye, and the fact that Ben was asked to take part in this kind of dream team, and it was quite an expensive game, and it lived up to all the expectation, and he absolutely fucking knocked it out of the park when it came to the music. I think it's probably one of his best. It's not my favourite, but it's one of his best bits. Technically, it's just fantastic. He absolutely nailed it.
I think John Twiddy had something to do with it as well.
John Twiddy, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, The Last Ninja, I do like it. It's a beautiful looking game, but getting used to the controls takes a fucking a month and then some. The controls are shocking. Once you get used to them, I disagree with people that say it's unplayable. Once you get used to the controls, it's perfectly playable. It's getting used to them. And as I found out when I got my when I dug out my 64s again, and this is one of the first things I loaded for the music and had a go of it, it's like, oh yeah, this needs relearning. And I have played it a few times since, and I can actually jump over the swamp part now. It took a while to get used to it again because you have got to be pixel perfect on them. I mean, they with The Last Ninja 2, they made it a little bit more lenient, but yeah, the first one was bastard hard.
Yeah, I don't like any of the Last Ninja games. I think I've said that plenty of times by now. But when it came to the music, and again, whether we're talking about Ben, whether we're talking about Matt, whether we're talking about Ren, the music has always been fantastic throughout the whole series. There's not really much I can add to it. It's they knew what they were doing when they brought in Ben Daglish. Because you think about it, when this came out, was it 87?
Yeah.
I guess the obvious choices as far as like doing music would have been like Rob Hubbard or so. He was the big name. Galway was always tied to either Ocean. Actually, I think in 87 he was with Sensible Software, wasn't he? So they were never going to bring him in. But you thought, okay, right, yeah, big name like this, it's going to have a big soundtrack. We'll get Rob Hubbard in. They obviously had seen or heard something in Ben Daglish music previously. So, although, I mean, he still was a big name. Everybody knew him. Or everyone who was like, a Commodore 64 gamer knew him. But obviously, he wasn't quite a Rob Hubbard. But he fucking pulled it off all right, I mean, he came up with... I'm not sure I would say the first game soundtrack. I mean, even though it's a lot shorter, the amount of music, I still consider Rambo to be the first sort of like game soundtrack. But yeah, it was a staggering achievement.
I think it was the first game that I can recall where it was being touted as actually, it's going to have like a film score soundtrack, whereas other games came out and the SID tune was just kind of tagged on. This one was going to be, you knew it was going to be epic. It's...
Yeah, I mean, the game got a gold medal in Zap, I believe.
Mm.
I mean, graphically, even... especially on a CRT, with all the the blooming and the blur and the scan lines and all that goes on, it's good. But even when you look at it, say like when I record videos of gameplay, I normally use an emulator because it's easier, and I have all the scan lines turned off because you've got so many different resolutions you can use on YouTube. Unless someone's watching in the exact one you recorded it in, it looks absolute bollocks. So I don't use scan lines, and I remember I went back to The Last Ninja for the first time not using scan lines, and I thought, even in its complete 8-bit glory, as it's actually presented from the computer, it's still a beautiful game. Yeah, it's a bit blockier, but all the colours on them backgrounds and the plants and the rocks and the trees and them dragons and that, it's an absolutely beautiful game, and the soundtrack from Ben and Anthony absolutely sets it off. And like I say, Ben was using Anthony Lee's player, so their music kind of tied up sound-wise, but when you know the soundtrack, you can tell the difference between the two, but they are on a par of each other. I wouldn't say that Ben's parts are any better than Anthony's. It's just one of them things where it just all came together and it works perfectly. Yeah, I love the music to this game, as you both well know.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, Al, for your final one.
Okay, right, this last one, we've spoke about it already. It's a game that if it hadn't come out, we probably wouldn't be sitting here right now, and it's Crazy Comics by Mr. Rob Hubbard. And I'm just looking down here, I see Johan's done his version, Matt Gray's done a version of it as well. Interested to listen to that, but anyway, we're going to listen to the Rob Hubbard one. Well, let's take it away. In fact, I bet it helps if I click on the bloody thing. I want.
Oh.
I can't think what made you want to fucking sell your Spectrum, mate.
Yeah, the song that sold me a Commodore 64, mate. Honestly, it was, it's funny thinking back, but yeah, just my mate Dean. He was literally, oh, Spectrum. He went, have a listen to this, and cranked his telly up, and I'm like, sound out the telly. Fuck, listen to that. And that was it. I knew I had to have one, and it was only a few months, and yeah, managed to flog the Specky to me dad's mate, and yeah, I think I sold it for 75, and my dad gave me an extra £5, so I had 80 quid because he had 264. I don't know how he had 264s. I think his dad was a builder in the 80s, so loads of money and all that. And yeah, I that was it. I've never looked back.
To me, it's like a slice of kind of SID perfection. It suits the game absolutely perfectly. I'm not a fan of kind of in-game music and shoot 'em ups, especially, but that makes the game fucking awesome.
Yeah, this was another game back in the day that I bought for the music. Although the game itself is pretty good as well. But yeah, I got this one particularly for. I think this was the first Rob Hubbard piece I heard, or at least it was the first that I heard and really sort of like took notice of. Because I did already have the Clumsy Colin Action Biker, which I think was Rob Hubbard's very first piece. This was being this had been loaded on a demo computer somewhere in Southend. I forget which shop it was. So I heard the music. I just thought I've got to get this game. I think it was a week or two later. Yeah, I finally got it. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, what a piece to pull you in like that. Like I say, it sold me the whole fucking system, let alone just buying the game. But I mean, the other stuff I was shown on that day because I when I had the Spectrum, it was a great machine for what it was. But I used to get the ump with like the colour clashing and stuff like that, and things changing colour. It really, I know a lot of programs have sorted that out these days, but it really used to distract me and fuck me off. And then when I went round there, and I got to see Crazy Comets and stuff like Hypersports and stuff like Hypersports to me at the time looked like a fucking arcade game. You had that to music like this, all the stuff he showed me to because he was like, yeah, Commodore's better than the Spectrum. He's worse than we ever were for that sort of thing. And I was hook, line, and sinker. I had to have one. And it all stems from the first time I heard this. He just turned his telly up. I was like, fucking hell. As you both well know.
Yeah.
Well, this is a question I asked when we did the very first one of these, but I'll ask it again. How do you think this compares to the remixed version that was used in Mega Apocalypse?
I don't mind the Mega Apocalypse remix, but this pisses over it. This is much better. I think if Rob had used the same instruments and done a slightly different tune, I think it would have been better. But I can see why they did, why he did it, or why they asked him to do it, or whatever. Because it's it's a progression from the game. Remix game, remix music. But no, it's not as good as this. And I think I probably said the same in the original one as well.
Yeah. I would say that because you can certainly hear the difference in the percussion track between the two. And you can hear how it has improved. So if he was to do like a version of the Crazy Comets theme, but using the percussion from Mega Apocalypse, that would be the ultimate version.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah, I certainly prefer Crazy Comets to Mega Apocalypse. I'm
Well,
solely tempted.
As far as the games go, I do prefer Mega Apocalypse, but yeah, music-wise, yeah, the original.
I was going to say, what would you think of a version of Crazy Comets but done with the Mega Apocalypse instruments?
I can't actually remember Mega Apocalypse, if I'm being brutally honest. I remember we had a conversation about them both before, and I went and listened to it, and I thought, no, I do prefer Crazy Comets, but I can't actually remember exactly what it's like, but I do prefer the original Crazy Comics. Is the Mega Apocalypse a kind of version of it? Is that kind of remixed? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, we did play a bit of it in the first show. Yeah, it is. It's I wouldn't say it's like a dance version or something like that, but it's got like some stops and starts, and I suppose if it was done on vinyl, it'd be like a couple of
Be like a 12-inch single version of it or something.
Yeah, 12-inch single with like extra bits here and there, like the added "oh yeah" and all that on it. There isn't in that, but that sort of remix.
Have you guys heard the Johan version of it? No.
Yeah. To be honest, I wasn't all that struck on it. It's the big problem with it actually is the fact that it's called Crazy Comics Remix. Because for one thing, you wouldn't initially recognise it as Crazy Comics. It's very different. So give it a different title and it would help it immensely.
So slightly livid comics or something.
What about the Matt Gray version? He's done a Crazy Comics remix, special remix actually. He's called it.
Yeah, I've not heard that one.
I have heard it. It's not bad. It just sounds like Crazy Comics, but done a la Matt Gray. I don't know. Give him a whirl later, Al, and see what you think.
I will do. Yep.
Yeah, good choice. That's always a good choice. Yeah, because that's like number 2 on my favourite SID list. I've had 1 and 2 tonight. Go on then, Chris. Your last one.
All right, last one. Might be considered a bit predictable because, something you mentioned earlier on in the video. Once we'd got the news of Johannes Bjerregaard died, Ren Auerhand did his video tribute, and he covered one of Johannes Bjerregaard's pieces of music. This one, this is called Sweet.
What a stunning piece of fucking music. I'll tell you, the planet Earth is poorer musically without him.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I do have to say that the version that Ren Alahan performed in his video is also, anyone watching this, if you haven't seen it, you have got to, you've got to check it out. Not only because it is a truly great version, but watch Ren while he is performing it, because I don't know if it's just me, he looks absolutely heartbroken throughout the whole thing. You can see that this is an extremely personal performance of his. And yeah, it's something you've got to see.
Is that on YouTube, Lukozer, is it?
Oh yeah.
Aye, maybe is it possible to put a link to it?
Oh yeah, I'll absolutely put a link to
that would be good. That'd be good. Yeah, I've got to say that was stunning. That was certainly that was my favourite Johan track tonight. That was incredible. It really was.
Yeah, given the circumstances, that probably is the tune of the night for me. I mean, you know, it's not gonna, you know, The Last Ninja Wastelands is my favourite SID. It is what it is, but for tonight, that was the best SID you could have played. And yeah, that's exactly, I do know that one, and that's exactly the one I would have played last as well. So I was expecting it.
Yeah, so I had a feeling you would have a pretty good idea this would be the last one. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to actually put in the words what it is that makes that so good, but it does everything, not just right, it does everything to perfection. Yeah, I cannot find even the slightest fault with this one.
No, that's because there ain't one. There's not one to find in it. It is SID perfection. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we've had a fair number of SID perfection tunes tonight. All right, there's been some we've disagreed with, but when you look at, we've played 18 tunes, and I reckon on well over half of them, if not 2/3 of them, we've all been like, yeah, that was fucking brilliant. I feel a bit bad for Rob in the fact that the other two have passed away and he's still alive. And we're not trying to wish you into an early grave, Rob, or anything like that. It's just literally those are the musicians we pick. Mamemeister and Lukozer told me who they was going to have, and I had a choice of 6. And in the end, I chose Ben because I wanted something that would sound totally different to what they'd done, so we'd have a nice wide range of music for you all to listen to. And I think we've achieved that.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, done it consummates.
Yeah, it's just a fucker when you're looking at that picture of Johan. He looks like a right cheery guy, young guy, and then he's got fucking 2022 cancer in brackets. That's a right bastard.
Yeah, well,
you know what? You know, if to take anything from that, his music lives on. It's the same with Ben, and it always will. As long as old fuckers like us are waxing lyrical about stuff like this, it's always going to continue. There's going to be people that'll take over for us when we're long gone. You know, it's brilliant that their music's still out there for people to enjoy.
Well, yeah, I mean, what, you know, one of my kids. Well, I say kids; they're both in their 20s now. One of them's not interested at all. The other one come to the 8-Bit Symphony with me. He used to edit my videos. He's got all the SIDFX albums, and he loves chiptunes. So there's hope. He's I think get it right. He's 22 this year, so in December. So you know, there's at least one person who's young that's getting into it, and I'm sure by a long way I'm not the only one that's got a kid that's into it. So yeah, it's good. It will live on, because as long as this website's there, it's there for anyone to listen to. Well, I suppose on that note, that'll be it for this one then, chaps.
I think so, yeah.
Your powers of prediction ain't that bad, Chris. I'll have to be honest, because I said I was going to choose a song to play out with, and you know it's my channel, dealer's choice. So we're going to go out with a Ben one, and yeah, we're going to go with Cobra. So you were right.
Yeah.
This was originally in the in the 5. And when you said, oh, you know, can we do 6? I thought, right, well, I could use that to play out with, and that's when I dropped Blood Brothers back in, the one that had the wild solo on the end. So yeah, so we'll play out with Ben Daglish's cover of Sylvester LeVay's Skyline that wasn't in the Cobra film soundtrack, but is on the CD, and it's the title music to the game. The game was shit, but the music's outstanding. All right, leaves me just to say then, thank you very much for watching. But until the next video, laters.